Hi everyone, JJ Martinez here again with another graphite tutorial. Today I'll be doing a little more drawing than talking. Just in my last video I kind of did too much talking, but more drawing today. So what I use for this video is a set of Koh-i-Noor sketch pencils, a kneadable eraser, and Strathmore sketch paper, which is a paper you'll want to use anytime you sketch. I like using Strathmore sketchbooks. You can use other brands like Hanson, Pro Art, whatever your local craft store sells, but Strathmore is my go-to. For this tutorial, I'm covering basic shapes, which is actually a good place to start for graphite sketching, and I'll explain why. Understanding basic shapes is key in learning to draw. Our teachers often use basic shapes as a starting point for their students that advance to still life drawing. Now, the whole point of doing basic shapes is to understand light source, and as we go to our next clip, you'll see why. Okay, so now we're starting with the HB pencil. And our topic is basic shapes. Sorry about the fuzzies, the camera I have isn't that great. But whatever, I'll get a new camera eventually. So we'll start off with a circle, which is one of the most basic shapes. It's one of the easiest actually to start with. Light source, and light source is very important when drawing shapes, as it determines where you're going to be shading. And since the light source is obviously on the right, your shading will be on the left. So we're just shading lightly. Now remember what I said in my previous video about digging into the page. Don't do it. And I find myself forgetting a lot not to dig into the page. Then I end up with problems because then I can't erase the thing, you know. So now we're starting with some darker shading, such as the B pencil. This is where we start giving it life. And what I like to do next is shade it a bit with my finger. Okay, and you see it makes it nice and smooth, gives it a really nice gradient. Looks all pretty. Now we start off with darker pencils like 2B, which starts giving it more dimension. You know, and this you would just kind of go more along the edges with, just to kind of make it look round. You know, and again, I like to shade that with my finger too. Now for a bit of 4B, to kind of give it a little more definition on the edges, which looks very nice. And of course a shadow, because we gotta ground it a little bit, and you know, not make it look like it's floating in space. So there's our little shadow. And now for some cleanup, we'll take our kneadable eraser, which is made by Faber-Castell, by the way. I don't know of any other art brands that make this. You can probably check Dick Blick Art Studio. They're online. You can get a lot of great stuff from them. But Faber-Castell stuff you can usually buy. You can buy that actually offline, or you can get it at your local craft store. Okay, now just clean it up, and it's also nice for kind of fading lines too. And then some more fuzzies. And now we have our first circle. So that's that. Now for the next topic, or I should say subject, is going to be our cube. Now we always start with the front, and just kind of loosely sketch that. Now when you want to make an object look three-dimensional, always add angled lines. Angles are very important, especially when doing something like a cube. Okay? Kind of darken it in a little. Okay, now our light source is going to be over there where I drew those little 3 lines. Okay, so now our shading will be there. Now notice here I'm not using the point really. I'm using more the broad side of the lid, which is better for when you're coloring large areas and, you know, just trying to get it done in a timely manner. Now the thing to understand with our light source, especially with cubes and squares and stuff like that, is that there's always going to be an element of like a slight shade on your flat surface, so it may not seem like completely flat. It's semi-round. Okay. And again, we're going in with a little bit of darker leads, kind of giving it more dimension. And by the time we're done, this is going to look pretty amazing. Okay. Shade the top a little. Boom, boom. Yay! More soft gradients. Okay. This is our 2B pencil. This is where we start adding a little more definition. There's going to be slight shading down there too. And now we start drawing our shadow outward. I'm not too good with cube shadows, but for this video you kind of get the gist of it. You know, kind of use a little bit of the point, but also a little bit of the broad side of the lid. And that's what'll get you your shadow, and of course, finger shading, my favorite. I love finger shading. Now with our darker pencil, such as the 4B, I'm gonna kind of finalize some of that shading there and use a little more pressure when doing your definition lines, especially at the bottom. This way it looks more, you know, clean. And again, shading with the finger. I love shading with the finger. Once again, sorry for the fuzzes. And there we have the circle and the shape. Pretty amazing, huh? Now for the last bit, we're gonna do a cone. AKA, it can be a triangle. But since it has a rounded bottom, like you'll see now, it is a cone. Or better yet, known as a pyramid. You can call it whatever you want. These are interesting to shade. Once again, our light source is kind of coming from up there. So we're gonna kind of shade it with the broad side of the lead. Now when you're shading something like this, depending on your light source, your shading is not going to be like straight down one side of the thing. It's going to kind of curve a little bit. There, we can do that with our finger more and it'll give us a better gradient. Now the B pencil. Just to kind of start cleaning it up the lines a little. And then start going darker a little bit, but not too much darker. And then you want to kind of narrow out your shading more at the top. Okay, so we kind of keep going with that and just try not to go outside the lines too much. I do, but whatever, that's me. More definition, just to kind of clean it up, make it look pretty. Now we get our darker pencils and we're going to do a little more shading. Start creating our shadow for the thing. Darker pencil, much darker, and we're just going to go very, very, very tiny strokes. And that's kind of what gives it a little more of like that edge, as opposed to just doing big strokes. Okay, and that's one thing you always want to remember with doing any kind of graphite sketching is to vary your strokes based on the shape you're drawing. Okay, so now that's about cleaned up. So now we'll just get our eraser and do that. You know, kind of make it look like there's actually light hitting it without making it look like, oh, there's so much smudges. So now that's kind of the final stages of the drawing. Just clean up the left edge a little, and boom. And there we have it, all of our basic shapes. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you have any questions or requests for future videos, leave a comment and be sure to hit that wonderful subscribe button. Updates are every other Tuesday. See you all then!